Are you letting name spellings and name variations trip up your genealogy research? It's a common mistake. Hi, I'm Lisa Lisson with Are You My Cousin, and I'm here to take the overwhelm out of your genealogy research. And today we're going to be talking about a very common genealogy mistake, and I'm going to be giving you tips on how to avoid that. So before we get started, hit that subscribe button down in the bottom right hand corner. You won't miss any of the new videos that I post here on the Are You My Cousin YouTube channel. So when I started doing genealogy research, I made, this very common mistake. I got stuck on the name spellings and variations because I couldn't quite understand at first why the names changed or why the spellings varied so widely. And because I wasn't thinking broadly enough in the variations for those names, I tended to get stalled in my research. In other words, I couldn't find people, mainly because I wasn't being open-minded enough about what that name may have looked like in the records. Now let's talk about the spellings of names. Absolutely, they varied. And it was well into the 1900s before spelling became very standardized. And this can trip us up. And if you're not aware of that, if you're new to genealogy, do not get hung up on the fact that a name is spelled differently from one record to another, or even within the same record. So, for instance, one of the names that I research is Howard. It is a surname, it's a maternal surname that I research. And I have actually seen, believe it or not, 13 different spellings of that surname in the record. And I had to recognize who they were. Now, part of the reason for this is that things were just transcribed incorrectly, or couple that transcriber trying to read poor handwriting or faded handwriting of these old documents, and you can see easily how some of the misspellings, as I use that term loosely, seem to perpetuate themselves in the records. It's easy to have happen, but if we're aware of that and we understand our ancestor well enough, we can still recognize them for who they are, even though their name is spelled a little differently. Now, this is also important. We must keep in mind that these name spellings could be different because it's going to affect what records we find in our search, and it's going to affect how we search. So if we're having trouble searching, you might want to try a wildcard search. Now, I have done a video on how to do a wildcard search. I've also written a post on that on my website with a lot of graphics so that you can learn how to do that. And if you are having trouble because you have a name that really the spelling changes frequently, I'm going to encourage you to check out that video and that blog post because it's going to help you out when it comes to for your search strategies for those names that change. Now, the other thing that really can be quite simple to do is just to keep a running list of the variations of that surname that you find. So the reason I know that I found 13 different spellings for that Howard surname is because I have a running list. And so when I am searching, I can go through that checklist fairly quickly and determine which name I want to search and know that I have covered all my bases of what I'm finding. So I would encourage you to keep a running list. It just makes it easier and quicker in your search. Now let's talk about what happens when the name shifts and changes, or they're using a variation of their name. Now this can happen again for several reasons. And I'm going to be upfront. Sometimes we don't know why the surname changes. So for instance, that Howard name, I was so excited. I was researching that name. I was a brand new researcher. I was making progress, and I slammed right into that brick wall. And I worked and I worked and I worked, and I finally found the family again. But here was the catch. They were using a name variation. They were using the name Harwood. Now, for whatever reason, that seems to be a common, at least in that area where they were living, that was a very acceptable variation on the surname of Howard. So I was thrilled. I found the family. I called my mom, told my family. I'm like, guess what? They used to go by the name of Harwood. It was a name variation. And the family just kind of looked at me and said, you didn't know that? We didn't tell you that? Okay, so obviously I had my confirmation there, right? The family actually knew, and so if your family knows, that helps. Now in this case, we have no idea why the name changed. It flip-flopped between Harwood, Howard, Harwood, back and forth, and to be honest, I'm not even sure what the original name is. So, but they're all the same, it's just variations, and so I think that's important to keep that in mind, that that can happen, and it's okay. Okay, don't let it throw you too much, but you've got to keep that open mind that that could be what's happening, and maybe why you're missing finding an ancestor. Maybe it's not a name spelling difference, it could just be a shift in the name. Another common reason for this would be the fact that maybe somebody wanted to Anglicize their name when they came over. So it's very possible, and we see this with some of the immigrant ancestor populations that come over, they may change their names a little bit, they may change their names a lot, but because you're more likely to see the misspellings there, but you're also more likely to see the name variations there. So keep that in mind as you go when it comes to that name. I want you to keep an open mind about what a name spelling could possibly be, and what that name variation could be. We don't want to get too stuck on spellings, but we also, on another aspect of this, would be not so stuck on an actual name. So when we're looking at first names or given names, do not neglect to look for a nickname. Do you suspect that your ancestor may be going by a nickname? Do you recognize it as a nickname? Some nicknames look very similar to their full name. So if you have somebody named Albert, but you're finding him listed as Al, okay, that's pretty close. Or maybe he's listed as Bird. Those are pretty close. Those are very easy to kind of make those assumptions. But what happens when you have a woman whose name is Mary, but she's going by Polly? Because Polly is an accepted variation or accepted nickname for Mary. Or, here's an even tougher one. What about, I recently came across this one, what about a woman named Bridget whose nickname is Delia? And also Biddy. Those don't really look that much alike, right? And it threw me for a while. So it's important to make sure you understand nicknames exist, that what a common nickname might be for your ancestor, that could be part of why you're not finding them. So seek those answers out. There are definitely websites out there you can actually Google, common nicknames for Mary, common colonial nicknames for Sally, or common colonial nicknames for Sarah. Those types of queries will help you determine who is who. Don't make that common mistake of being stuck on a particular name and a particular spelling. Be open to spelling variations in your searches, whether it was a spelling variation or whether it was just a transcription error that occurred. Be open to name variations. A surname may have changed slightly for a variety of reasons. Be open to that. Be open to the fact that your ancestor, when it comes to a given name, may be using a nickname, and that nickname may or may not resemble their formal name. Before you head out for your research today, guys, hit that subscribe button down below. You won't miss any of the new videos. And if you think about it, if you have some really great nicknames or really great name variations that you found or tips, drop them in the comments below, and let's share and see. I'm always interested to hear some of the various, particularly nicknames that people have found in their research, because I'm always learning, and I'd love for us to learn from each other. All right, guys, there you have it. Have a great day. Bye.